Yesterday, Nuria, a survivor of FGM, joined us live from Ethiopia. She's also an advocate, and it's been established that in Ethiopia, the Muslims and the Christians have all come together to say one thing, that FGM has no place in those two religions, and even culturally, that has been outlawed. We continue our conversation today on VSA, looking at the ills surrounding FGM. I'm Sulaiman. As the world charges to see the end of female genital mutilation, communities have resorted to seeking the services of medical professionals to engage in the cutting of vital organs. Despite this, the great risk FGM opens its victims to are still just as complex and many. In Egypt, which has a very high presence of FGM, 77% of the practice is now conducted by medical practitioners. Egypt is just one of the 29 countries who inflict FGM on their females. 4 in 5 operations are still performed by a traditional practitioner, often in unsanitary conditions with serious health implications and no understanding of the precariousness of what she or he has done. Now, you see, in Northeast and West Africa, they have the highest rate of FGM on the continent, with Mali still believed to have a prevalence that is over 80%. FGM is a practice that ranges in severity, and for this reason, it is a serious human rights issue, long abolished by various countries, but still largely practiced in most parts of the continent. While joining me on Village Square, Africa today to discuss female genital mutilation are Ayo Awodoyin-Bello, Executive Director and Founder Initiative for Girls' Rights and Health Development, IGRHD, Bernadette Rezian Loloju, the CEO of the Anti-FGM Board in Kenya, pretty much later Mirel Tushiminina, she's the global coordinator of the UNFPA UNICEF joint program to eliminate female genital mutilation, and of course Dr. D. Allens Noble, general practitioner at the 2nd Division of the Nigerian Army Hospital and founder of Saving Women and Children Foundation, will be joining me. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good to have you all on the show. Very quickly here, adjectives are let's quickly go to Muriel and Ayo. Adjectives like just a nick, just a prick. These are some of the adjectives used to describe FGM. So we're looking at the implication of these simple and even nonchalant descriptions. Let's start with you, Muriel. If you can hear me, we're talking about how this has been for a lot of people on the continent, in as much as they try to describe this as something so simple, but it is something so, bad practice that affects the woman's health. Ayo.
First, it's a great honor, that I joined this exciting conversation for the elimination of female genital mutilation. I must admit that it's a conversation and a matter that many on the continent are not really keen to interrogate. But what our work we've been doing since 2008, the UNICEF and both agencies, UNICEF and UNFPA, joined together back in 2008 through a program to really accelerate the elimination of FGM. And as you know, let me just kind of focus on the African continent, over 50 million of girls are estimated to be at risk of undergoing FGM by 2030. But when we also kind of statistically, we look at the global statistic, 200 millions of girls and women have undergone FGM. And the recent projections also indicate that 68 millions of girls are at risk. And the numbers of girls estimated to be at risk increased from 4.1 million in 2019 to 4.6 million in 2030. If the current levels, prevail, will be most between infancy and age 15. So this is really a matter that is important to us. And it's and I'm glad that we are talking about it. We are talking about it in our joint program, focused on really trying to find a solution, engaging with member states, IPs such as implementing partners, our country representative, and all of that. So we need to talk about it. If I can go on and on and on, but more importantly, we really trying to advocate for the abandonment of FGM and at a global scale.
I'll come back to you, Muriel, so that we can actually pretty much talk about how the task is going for you at the UNFPA UNICEF in Nairobi there. Quickly here, Ayo, the cultural reason for cutting for decent sexual behavior in females is popular on the continent. Can the importance of education be overemphasized?
When it comes to female genital mutilation, it's not an issue of education per se, because when you talk about education, I want to mean formal knowledge, because female genital mutilation is common among the literate, the illiterate, the poor, the rich, and all of that. But when you say education, I want to assume that you mean maybe sensitization or the literacy level per se within the continent. And I'm very happy we're having this discussion, and I'm very excited at how you have nominated your guest speakers. I'm happy that Muriel is here to talk from the global level, because female genital mutilation is a global challenge, and I'm glad I'm here to also share my story and to also talk about how it affects us. So there's some sort of balance. So what we are doing right now is highly productive. So female genital mutilation does not have to do with basic education per se. I think it is highly rooted in culture, highly rooted in gender inequality, highly rooted in patriarchy and all sorts of social construct. And when we want to talk about female genital mutilation, it's actually very broad. So basically, it's more about streamlining it, particularly when it comes to Nigeria. I know female genital mutilation is rampant in Africa, Kenya, Egypt, Somalia, and all of that. But, Nigeria as a case study, I work in Osun State. Osun State used to be the state with the highest prevalence of female genital mutilation. But using Nigeria as a case study, I want to believe that female genital mutilation has lots of effects, when it comes to its practice. And I'm very glad that even the legal system has actually emphasized that female genital mutilation is wrong, is a violation of child's rights, is a violation of women's rights, is a violation of human rights. So everybody should understand that female genital mutilation, is something that needs to come to an end. I know we just need to crusade positive behavioral change, because it's more of a cultural thing, and then people who practice it do not even understand the implication, because it is carried out for so many reasons based on love, assumption that the religious books support it, assumption that it is the perfect decision for the girl child, assumption that they are promoting the culture. But culture is not static. We decide what happens. We decide the kind of culture we want. So it is our duty to also change all of these things. There was a time they used to kill twins. There was a time tribal marking was the in thing. So I want to believe that if all of those things can come to an end, female genital mutilation can also come to an end. So I want to believe that one of the challenges that is promoting the practice of female genital mutilation in Nigeria is ineffectiveness of our laws. There is the VAP Act, but it's yet to be domesticated in all the states. I want to believe that ineffectiveness of laws is one of the things, promoting the culture of female genital mutilation. Let me not share everything I have to say right now because of time. So I think I will just put an end to it there.
Ayo, we have all the time in the world, and that's the whole essence. We're here on News Center to actually dissect and see that some of these things are taken out of our environment, out of our communities, especially where we know they are inimical to, to the biology and even existence of humans. Let me come quickly to you, Muriel. You know, listening to Ayo, we actually practice in southwest of Nigeria, Osun State. She said it is the state with the most prevalent, you know, figure of, you know, FGM. What are those things you hear in the course of your task? Is it only cultural, or is it a spice of religious, you know, ideology also into the whole mix of why people are being cut?
One thing, as an African woman, we cannot always blame our tradition. We cannot blame our religion. I will say that FGM, it's a global issue. We all are involved. We all have our part into it. We have our girls, and overall the chance that our girls will be cut today or tomorrow is about 1/3 lower than what it was, you know, a few decades ago. Yes, it's quite declining, and it's dependent on certain communities. And the more I'm listening to Ayo, and I'm also reflecting on the work that we are doing, because right now our portfolio have more than 21 countries. We increase countries as we're going. And I can guarantee you that some of the progress we've seen are countries in our tier 1 countries, and Nigeria is one of them. So it is really good for us to hear those kind of stories, and that, yes, we should continue address and maybe trying to identify where we need to kind of put all our effort in certain part, because a lot of them as well has to be with cross-border relationship, and that is also something that we are trying to address. So all of us, we have our part to play in this. Our mothers, our grandmothers. I've spoken to many victims as well. Some of the victims, they didn't even know they were cut, but because it was a religious and it's social norms that, you know, people have gotten comfortable with. I have also other victims who are really high-level CEOs who are okay that they were cut based on ignorance, because it was an heritage, a tradition in the family that they used to do it. And even though that she's realizing that, wow, it was wrong, but she's fine because she's realized that her mother, her grandmother, they were ignorant at that time. So what I can say that we can still continue fighting. The fight is there. We have quite a doable and quite bold vision to end by 2020. However, with the decline in some countries, we would like to see most of the countries to be all kind of similar by 2030 and that. So all we can do, and re-emphasizing what Ayo had said, especially mentioning about the girls' right. Yes, all girls and women are entitled to their rights, and now they are being violated. What are we doing about it? What our governments are doing, our African institutions, global institutions, and all.
Because listening to you, you said, I quite appreciate the fact that you said you're trying to be cautious, especially when it comes to religious and cultural matters. I quite appreciate that. You know, where you are at the moment in Nigeria is actually soaked and deep in, you know, cultural matters, Osun State. How easy has it been for you, you know, going in your advocacy, telling the people that cutting the girl child is wrong?
Of course, it has not been easy. I have about 7 years experience working to end female genital mutilation. I started my organization, Initiative for Girls' Health and Rights Development, 5 years ago. And female genital mutilation is something, you know, it's an issue that we need to be very passionate about and also cautious and sensitive about. You know, like I said, I'm excited at this discussion because we can't end female genital mutilation if the energy at the global level and at the grassroots level are not in sync. So as a grassroots activist, what we do is we go into different communities, different villages to talk to them. Of course, we've received lots of backlash. You know, we've had people tell us, okay, you're too young. What do you know? You're just a young girl. okay, you don't know anything about female genital mutilation. I mean, it was even worse then when I was in school and I was single. So at least now that I'm married and I have a child, I can at least say something, because then going into the communities is like, you're just too young. What do you know? Because you got some funds from some white people, you think you can just come here to say whatever it is you like. So it's been very, very challenging. But like I said, we need to get lots of support, even at the global level, to ensure that activists who are working to end female genital mutilation are continuously encouraged. There is access to funds, there is access to support, even from the government. So it's really been challenging, but we've been gathering lots of success stories. So we refuse to be discouraged. We've had people who wanted to be circumcised, and then at the end of the day, they ended up not being circumcised because of our intervention. We began by doing phone in and then one-on-one, trying to talk to them one-on-one, face-to-face rather, going to houses like evangelism to tell them, okay, have you heard about female genital mutilation? Distributing publicity materials, but with a couple of funds from Sorok Mist International, from Guardian Media Global, Globe GMC. We've been able to get media airtime, to talk on radio, to talk on TV. We've been able to hold stakeholders meeting, get the law enforcers together to talk to them. If I report a case on female genital mutilation, will you handle it like rape? Will you handle it like armed robbery? Will you handle it like it's, the way SARS would actually pick up Yahoo boys? Are you very passionate? So we need to understand that we need to ensure that the change of mindset begins from the government. The change of mindset, begins with the stakeholders. And then we also got support from traditional.
I hate to stop you here, but I'll come back to you because I'll come back to you so that you tell us how the police has been handling this, because now you just try to juxtapose the, apprehension of those who practice this to those who are rapists. We'll come back to that. But Muriel, listening to Ayo, what readily comes to mind here is the challenge you go through trying to redirect, reorientate, re-educate the people, because you can imagine she was pretty young when she started, and the kind of backlash she got on account of her marital status then, because she was single, and secondly because she was quite young. Is that also the case in Kenya when you go about your job? Because we also understand that there are some couple of men in advocacy efforts on FGM.
Let me just also kind of clarify. I run the joint program in the global program. So meaning I'm more on the donor side. So yes, I do empathize, and I'm hearing your stories, and I'm glad that GMC is one of her biggest support, because they are one of our biggest grantee as well. So we fully fund all the activities. So indirectly, I'm glad that we are supporting what you are doing, your work. But some of the major challenge from us coming from UN institutions and other institutions as well, is that we feel and we know and we sense it, the sector is still underfunded. FGM is a social norm, and any expert can attest that changing social norms and gender norms, it takes a process and requires a long-term engagement, and that is what we are trying to do. The estimated for us to really end FGM by 2030, there is a gap of 2.1 billion. And I'm sure Ayo will also be surprised that I'm also faced with those kind of challenges as well, because we want to be able to support the work. We want to be able to really advance legislation at the country level, also engage with the institutions. But there is that funding gap. And there are some also emerging and hidden practices, coming up, like medicalization, the practice of MGM by a healthcare provider. I'm sure you mentioned Egypt earlier, but Egypt, back in 2013, Egypt had a similar case, and the police never reacted, neither did the government. But I can guarantee you now there was some progress after the ICPD 25 summit. Egypt were amongst the first countries when the practice, a young girl, a 15 years old young girl, undergone the practice in early February, 4 days prior to the International Day of Zero FGM. A father and a nurse practiced FGM on the 15 years old, and Egypt arrested the parents in a few hours, and now they face about 20 years of prison. So there are some still hidden practice where we are seeing now some countries reacting to it, but yet there's still room for progress. And as I always tell my team, there's still room for us to do better. Now that we are in the decade, we have embraced the decade of action, FGM has to become a top priority in everyone's agenda. Bottom up, top bottom. Everyone needs to talk about it, and we need to find the right solution. And finding the right solution, it's really involved our IPs, implementing partners, people like IU. And I'm glad that we are having this conversation from a donor perspective, institution perspective, and a grantee and implementing partner and a victim as well conversation. So that's what I can briefly say due to time. Thank you.
And don't worry, pretty much later we'll also look at the medical perspective, because we have a doctor who will be joining us pretty much later. But Ayo, coming back to you, we're trying to see how enforcement, has been when you have people who carry out this practice in your area of operation. How has it been, having this cooperation with the law enforcement agents, and have you had anyone who's taken your organization or sued you for such action?
Glad you have asked me that question, and in the context of Nigeria. But I'm also going to begin my response, from the global level, then to Africa, and then to Nigeria, and then to Osun. I'm glad Bennett made referral to the ICPD summit in Nairobi. I was there. And then there is actually a target to ensure that we end female genital mutilation at 2030. But I want to believe that ineffectiveness of laws is not just unique to Nigeria alone. Just like many laws are written on paper and there's been no implementation, that's also the case of female genital mutilation. And as a survivor of female genital mutilation, apart from the fact that, okay, I run an organization and all of that, being a survivor was one of the things that led me into, founding my organization. And this is the only job I do. It's a full-time thing for me. Everybody that knows me, that hears Ayo Bello, what comes to them is Ayo Bello FGM. So it is something that is into my fabric when it comes to female genital mutilation. It's something I'm very, very passionate about. So, and then when it comes to ineffectiveness of laws, like I said, it's not like female genital mutilation is the only social, issue suffering from ineffectiveness of law. That's what I'm trying to explain. That it's a general problem. And Nigeria in particular, we know what law enforcement can be. So in Osun State, we've been able to work with different stakeholders. Like I was saying before now, we've worked with the police, we've worked with medical practitioners, we've worked with legal practitioners, we've worked with traditional rulers, we've gotten support of the Oni of Ife. His wife, Queen Naomi, is one of our zero tolerance ambassadors, and we've done lots of fantastic projects together. So when it comes to ineffectiveness of laws, we've been able to gather the police together, to talk to them. In fact, a sister organization, AC International, in fact, did a summit for Amotekun, your state, Ibadan, to talk to them, to say, okay, this is a challenge. How do we do it? How do we solve this problem? So we've gotten the support of the police, in Osun State. We actually train them. We have meetings. For instance, 6th of February was Zero Tolerance Day for female genital mutilation. We've had lots of community outreach. And we also have, my organization, we have a counseling unit and a response, line where people can phone in. People, we make sure that we encourage whistleblowers. So in case there are situations where, somebody wants to perpetrate female genital mutilation, there's a number they can call, and then we can go there, and then speak with them. But when it comes to female genital mutilation, from my organization, I actually tackle it from two angles because it's actually very broad. So I tackle it from the legal aspect and from the medical aspect, making people understand that female genital mutilation has no medical benefit, and then making them understand that female genital mutilation is illegal. If the VAP Act has not even been domesticated, let's agree, of course, the VAP Act is from the federal level. Osun State has a law, our state laws against female genital mutilation for more than 11 years, and the state still ranks highest. It shows, how much the ineffectiveness of laws has eaten into the fabric of the society. It shows that female, in fact, when you campaign against female genital mutilation, you are seen as an outcast. When you don't want to perform female genital mutilation, you are seen as an outcast. Even as an activist that I am, when I was pregnant, people were like, "Oh, you still have to cut your girl." Even some family members, they know my stand. They know that this is something I don't like, but they still threw it to my face to say, "Ayo, if you give birth to a girl, you are definitely going to cut your child." So for you to understand that it's an age-long practice and it takes lots of effort, to ensure that it is done. But I can't do it alone. We need to work together. As a young girl, as a survivor, as a grassroots activist, it's not easy going from community to communities, but young people, we have the energy. I have lots of volunteers working, but we can't keep working if the funds are not sustained.
Absolutely.
If the support is not sustained. So ineffectiveness of laws, if we want to end female genital mutilation before 2030, the law enforcers need to work with us. They need to understand. If I tell them this person is a cutter, please arrest the person according to the law. Are they going to do that? Then another challenge we have in Osun State is that the Association of Cutters, that's the Ololas, that's what they call them, they see circumcising as a prestigious, profession. They say it is their forefathers' profession, so they cannot just leave it like that. Circumcisers, then the Ololas were in charge of tribal marking. That was much more like tattooing, circumcision, male and female circumcision. So now when we tell them, okay, please stop female genital mutilation, they say, okay, so how do I feed? What is the government intervention? How do you want me to cope? So that's why I said the issues of female genital mutilation is actually very, very broad. So that's another issue. Some of them would say, I don't want to abandon my father's profession. This was what he trained me with. This was what he sent me to school with. I have to keep the family prestige. I have to make my ancestors happy. So these are some of the funny reactions we get at the grassroots level.
Well, anyway, I think let's have the closing moment from Muriel before we go, because so that we can bring in the doctor and also bring in Bernadette. Quickly here, it comes back to your area, which is about, funding, a donor agency. What are the key challenges you're experiencing at the moment? Because for people like Ayo, they need all the support, all the funding to actually carry out this onerous task.
Yes, thank you. Yes, so on the donor side, I can say that the weak accountability mechanism to hold our government accountable for the commitments, it's one of the challenges as well. And the low government budgetary allocation by countries to implement programs. So because of all of this challenge, we recently launched the primer. A primer is the joint program. Our vision with the primer, it's really to enhance the national human rights institution, enhance the capacity and building from translating from the commitment, our commitment and the government commitment, to more action and accountability on FGM elimination by 2030. As you know, National Human Rights Organization, I'm saying that because I'm hearing a lot of, I could hear Ayo's cry that, our government now being held accountable. We need more legislation. We need more accountability. We need more engagement. So that is what we are really hoping to do with National Human Rights Organization, to really voice the girl child's right as they are in unique position to hold government accountable to their commitment to respect, protect the rights of the girl child, and also engagement with political leaders that are designed to really support and reinforce local level, grassroots level effort and initiative as Ayo. But what I can also just add from a donor perspective that we are committed. We are committed to continue supporting implementing partners such as Ayo, GMC, and everyone. The journey, we've been fighting for over 3-4 decades in these practices and entrenching our culture and religion and our blood and all, but there is always a way. And I strongly believe that this is our decade, the decade that really that follows the ICPD success. And Ayo, do not worry, I was on your side. I used to be a strong activist in a civil society, and I'm not afraid of saying that. So I know the path that you are walking to. I've walked those corridors, fighting for gender-based violence in my country, the DRC. I'm originally from the DRC, so I can empathize. And I can tell you that we are really, through the joint program, we are creating the space as a matter of urgency, if I may add, to provide the strategic leadership and establish coordinating platform to work with member state, grassroots organizations like yours, including youth. We all often leave out youth in the conversation, but we are involving them, regional CSOs, African media, really, such as Village Square. So we need you as well to come on board, and our regional economic communities as well, to really develop a strategy of engagement that will really lead us to road to 2030.
Muriel Tushimi Nina, Global Coordinator of the UNFPA UNICEF Joint Program to eliminate female genital mutilation, and Ayo Awodoyin Bello, Executive Director and Founder, Initiative for Girls' Rights and Health Development. Many thanks for being such nice company. We'll stay on this program. And still to come after now, a medical doctor and one advocate to still talk more on FGM. Stay with us. As our closing moments here on today's show, looking at FGM, you know, there are no medically defensible reasons for practicing female genital mutilation. It's led to the death of many people and babies that never made it out alive over the complications their mothers have had from FGM. The exact fatalities caused by FGM is still not too clear, you know, but in rural Somalia, where it is done without antibiotics, there are suggestions that 1 in every 3 girls dies other than bleeding, bacterial infections, damage to genital tissue, severe pain. Has also been found to lead to recurrent bladder infections, cysts, infertility, increased risk of newborn death. Now, the risks are enormous for the women folk, but many communities have failed to shift grounds on sticking to culture and tradition. The percentage of females aged between 15 to 49 who have been made to face FGM is more than 90% in Somalia and less than 1% in Uganda. As you've noticed on the show yesterday and also today, we've had 2 survivors as our guests on the show. So joining me now is Dr. D. Allens Noble. He's a general practitioner at the 2 Division Nigerian Army Hospital and founder of Saving Women and Children Foundation. Also, we have Bernadette Resian Loloju. She's the CEO of the Anti-FGM Board in Kenya. Bernadette and Dialens, many thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Suleiman. Good to be on the show.
Great. Let me start with you, Bernadette. You know, how prevalent is, you know, cases of FGM in East Africa, your country specifically?
Thank you very much for allowing me to come to your TV to discuss this issue. As the CEO of the Anti-FGM Board, Kenya, we are progressing well in terms of the decline of FGM. As of 2014, we were 21%, and this is a decline from 38% in 1999. And also we are having 1 in 10 girls now undergoing FGM than 3 decades earlier, 30 years ago when we had 5 in 10 girls. So we are seeing a lot of progress in Kenya, but we need to accelerate to move faster. And we are very happy because we have a commitment from our president that we should end FGM by 2022, that we should have 0 FGM by 2022. And having the highest political commitment by our president has accelerated, because from 2019, he gave the commitment in Canada at the Women Deliver Conference. He also reiterated the same during the ICPD 25 in Nairobi. And he has worked with us this journey. And we are very glad to say that Kenya in the region is really trying much. But I know Uganda is below 1%, and then Tanzania is around 10%. And so we are still really trying hard to make sure that we get to zero as much as we can.
Well, 2022 is just less than, 2 years from now, which is a good thing that you have a mark. Quickly here, Dr. De Noble, tell us, let's take us through the risk involved in this practice.
Thank you, Suleiman. The burden of FGM in Nigeria is globally it's immense, actually, because we have to understand that there is actually no health benefit of any sort. Again, it's illegal, and it poses so many social, economic issues to the girl child, and as well as the nation at large. So regarding the risk factors for a girl child who has been mutilated at a point in her life, we have to understand a number of things. We have to understand first what kind of FGM was done on her. There are different kinds of FGM based on the World Health Organization classification. We have about 4 classes, but I wouldn't dwell so much on it because of time. So first of all, we have to understand the type of FGM that was done on this girl child. The second thing, we have to understand the skill of the practitioner or the traditional birth attendant or whoever that carried out this procedure. Because in most places and in most African countries, they are done by traditional leaders. They are done by some elder state person in the local government. It's also done by some traditional birth attendants. So we have to understand the expertise of the practitioner, should I say, that carried out this procedure. Then we have to know if this procedure was actually done in a hospital, because currently we have some countries that have imbibed such practices. We have to understand and know if there was misuse of anesthesia or abuse of anesthesia. That's also a risk. So
let me get something clear here. Sorry, Dr. Noble, let me get something here. Are you saying that some countries have hospitals where this practice is being carried out?
Yeah, in practice, we have such countries that practice such. For example, Egypt, even in some areas in Nigeria, you'll be shocked, you'll be amazed, because what we deal with, some of the challenges we deal with in Nigeria, I'll use that as a case study, they are hugely underreported. You could have a hospital in the middle of nowhere. Someone is carrying out these procedures. You have no way of collating data. You have no way of checkmating what is actually done. So in sincerity, some hospitals do it.
So let me bring in Bernadette here. Bernadette, the good thing here is that there seem to be, a kind of edict, a big support from the government of your country, Kenya. Tell us how that, support is helping your advocacy in speaking, to the people to let go of this age-long practice.
Yes, the fact that we have a very high commitment from the president has really helped us to be able to reach out to our communities and really create awareness on why they should stop FGM. We've been now engaging elders, traditional elders, because they are the gatekeepers of culture. And we have realized that over time, we have not really been able to be telling the people why they should stop FGM. I think the issue here is the why. The question is always, why should we stop? It has been with us. It's our cultural way of doing things. Then why should you just come and tell us to stop? So we have decided as Kenya to really do what we are calling community dialogues. And we've already come up with a community dialogue guideline, which as government we have shared with our partners, and we have worked very closely with some of our partners. We include UNFPA and UNICEF through the joint program. We have AMREF also. And we've been able to really go around and work with some of our elders. And as of now, we are very proud to say that some of our elders from our traditional communities have really denounced FGM. We have the Borana elders, we have the Pokot elders who did that last week at the border of Kenya and Uganda, and we are having a landmark declaration by the Samburu elders in the next 1 week, and the president will be in attendance of this meeting. So you can imagine the progress we are making because of our commitment that has been given by our president.
Before I go back to Dr. Noble quickly here, Bernadette, the 2022 mark to eradicating FGM in Kenya, do you think that is feasible a date?
For us as Kenya?
You think the 2022 giving to eradicating FGM in your country is feasible?
Yes, 2022 is our mark. That is 8 years earlier than the 2030 mark. And one thing I want to say is that FGM is a practice that if communities make a decision to stop, like today, it will end. Because one is that the mothers who are survivors, like me, I'm a survivor. I'm a woman born in a community that practices FGM. And in Kenya, we have said we are not calling ourselves victims. We don't want to be victimized because it happened at a time when even our parents did not know that it was wrong. And our grandparents thought it was the right thing. But today, as I stand here, I am a survivor. I went through the cuts. But my daughter, my granddaughters will never face the knife. And that's what we are saying as women who are survivors of FGM here in Kenya. We want to make sure that our daughters are safe. And so what we are saying is that the next generation of girls, the next generation of men are the one who will end it. So for us, 2022 does not look like a dream, but it looks very possible because we have really upped our game. And what we have done is that we are going to the ground, to where the rubber meets the road. We are not doing any more boardroom meetings and hotel meetings. We are now moving to the people to tell them time is up. Let us just do away with this.
Dr. Yes. Noble, you're listening to her, and some of our guests who've been on the program, especially the survivors, we must commend everyone for coming out and for leading this fight, because it is a fight. Tell us some of those medical, risks involved in this practice.
Thank you. First of all, I will have to commend Benedict. She's a survivor. It's not easy to speak up. So many people stay hidden in the closet and the fight just lingers. But I have to commend her. It takes so much bravery. So going into the risks, I talked about various factors. In talking about the risk, we have to also understand the kind of instruments that was used to make these cuts. In some areas, they use a razor blade. Sometimes they use a shard of glass. Sometimes they use a piece of metal. That is for the type of instrument used. Then we have to classify them into early complications and late complications, because as the girl child is made to pass through such, I would call it an inhumane ordeal, there are various things that could happen spontaneously, immediately. So amongst those early complications, there could be severe pain, there could be serious bleeding, blood loss in excesses of 500 mils to 1,000 mils, which can lead to shock and can also lead to the death of this girl child. Let's also understand that these practices are more common in children or women aged 0 to 15 years of age. So the amount of blood loss is something I can't quantify at this moment. We also have to take into account the risk of infections of different kinds and urinary retention. That is for the early complications. For the late complications, these are things that ensue over a period of time. It may be a period of weeks, months, or years. There are various, let's take them in various levels now. So we are going to go to the area of infertility and sexuality. Let's start from there. I'll try to break it down make it compact, try to make it into 4 large groups. So let's take sexuality and infertility. You realize that some of these women, not all, some of these women suffer from what we call agosmia. Agosmia. What that means is that they are unable to actually get an orgasm. It is not medically possible for them to actually achieve an orgasm. That is for one. Some of them have decreased satisfaction. Some of them also have what we call dyspareunia, which is painful sexual experience. So you realize that they tend to shy away because of some of these factors. They are trying to meet their spouse, and the only thing in their head is, oh, it's going to be painful. How am I going to stand through this ordeal for another how many minutes? I don't know. So that is in terms of fertility and sexuality. It can also, one of the major complications that comes from this practice is vaginal dryness. It's as a result of a damage to the Bartholin gland. So that gland is responsible for female lubrication. So what happens is that once they take those cuts, most of them don't even know what they are cutting. They just cut. They believe that this is what I'm supposed to cut and this is what I'm supposed to cut. So they don't get to understand the medical consequences they leave to the girl child. That is in terms of fertility and sexuality. I would like to talk about gynecological and obstetric issues that come from female genital.
Let's see if we can do that in a minute, quickly, doctor.
Okay. Yeah, we have cases of obstructed labor, prolonged labor, increased CS frequency. It predisposes them to other infections, recurrent UTIs, cysts of various forms. Some of them have keloid scars. Some of them go through depression. Some of them have post-traumatic stress syndromes. So it cuts across all sectors.
Listening to you and Bernadette and others that have been on the program, what readily comes to mind is that everyone is on the same page, that this must be stopped. FGM dates back in time, but like many other abolished cultures, it can be ended. Listening to Bernadette, she said, well, 2022 is not a dream. It's a reality. It must happen. A culture of pain should have no place again on the continent. And education, literacy, again, at the forefront of the fight against FGM. And of course, also listening to you, Dr. Noble, you have also been able to educate us here on why we should stay away from that practice so that we have less, victims on the continent. I'd like to thank you both. But before I go, Bernadette, I'd like to learn something. What's this over your head, culturally? Tell me what that means or what that is in Kenya.
Yeah, I'm from the Maasai community, so we love a lot of color and beadwork. And so I tell my community, this is very beautiful culture. So we should keep this beautiful culture and stop the bad culture like FGM and child marriage. So I always dress like this. I enjoy our music, our dance, our other nice cultures, but FGM has to end. But our communities are very responsive, everyone, and bringing men on board. We have realized that men are a big game changer for us. Yeah.
I like that, very colorful. And when I visit Nairobi, I should have one of those on my head. Many thanks for being such nice company today on the program. And of course, Dr.
Welcome to Nairobi.
Yes,
welcome to
absolutely. We'll be there to do the show live very soon. Well, it's a wrap on the show.
Thanks.
Many thanks for being such nice company on the show. I'm Sulaiman, and again tomorrow we'll continue our conversation on VSA, still on FGM. See you tomorrow.